I want to share something with you guys today, and it's about a turning point in my development as a producer. And that was when I realized that when you're not super stoked about something you've recorded, there are ways to still use it and get the most out of that time that you spent in the studio. So let's explore one of those today. So this is from a song called Hair Trigger, and it was probably one of the first ones that set me along the path of developing my own voice as a producer. So I'll show you what it ended up sounding like on the record, and then I'll show you what I started with and why those changes were made. So that's what I ended up with, but there are some instruments that are totally different from where I started. So the main problem that I had was with the saxes, and this is what I started with. So believe it or not, the goal with that section was to have this sort of ambient pad-like texture coming from the saxes, like something that you might hear on a Bon Iver record. And my thinking, if we check out the score, was that the saxes would fill out all the 16th note subdivisions and just create this sort of bubbly little thing going on in the background. There are two main problems with what I wrote, and that one of them is the fact that the background texture is totally overlapping with the lead line, which is being played by the trumpet and trombone. And the second thing is the consistency. I was hoping to get something super smooth out of the saxes, but what came out ended up being super clunky, despite having really skilled players playing it. And that's just a result of poor writing. There's really nothing that you can do to play this any better on the instruments than what they did. So the first problem was really the overlapping ranges. So the saxes are supposed to be the background texture, but if you look, the alto and the trumpet are playing almost exactly within the same range, and the tenor and trombone are also playing almost exactly in the same range. So it's really unclear which one should be the lead. So we didn't have time to go and re-record it or rewrite this. So I had to figure out a way to make it work anyway, because I still wanted to use this song. So since we know that the range is one of the main problems, what we can do is transpose it artificially to get it out of the way. So here's what that sounds like. So it still sounds kind of dumb, but we're not done yet. So we can still get it out of the way even more with something other than the consistency of it. So now that we've fixed the overlapping part, we can make it more consistent in terms of the body of the sound, and we can also make it more consistent in terms of the dynamics. So for the dynamics, we can use a clipper to just totally pummel it. So now every note is more or less even. Now we can get it out of the way with some EQing. Since we've boosted it up an octave, we don't really need a lot of what's going on at the bottom end of the frequency range anymore, where the trumpet and trombone would be living anyway. So let's see where we are now. So in terms of range, it's mostly out of the way now, but it's still poking through the mix a little bit, so we're going to want to push it back. So what I like to do is put a delay on it. And if that isn't pushed back enough for you, you can always add some reverb to that as well. So now we've went from something that gets in the way of pretty much everything to something that really sits right in and inhabits its own space. So let's take a look at where we started from. And this is what we ended up with. So I'm leaving it a little bit loud so you can hear it now, but since you've heard it, let's fit it in where I would think we can put it, and we can tweak some of our processing a bit too. So now that we've solved the main problems, we can start to make it interesting and make it feel like it really belongs there. The goal of this video was not to tell you to use this specific technique, because honestly there are probably few applications where this would actually be appropriate. But the intention was to show you that even when you're not super stoked about some music that you've recorded, that doesn't mean that you should throw it out and that you have to go back to the drawing board. Hopefully this video just gives you some ideas and makes you experiment a bit more with your own music and create stuff that you've never heard before, and hopefully other people have never heard before either. So if you like this video, please subscribe, and you'll see more content like this in the future about getting maximum mileage out of your music.